Welcome to OLC 40. This is term 1A. We are on class 26, and today we're looking at assignment 35, number 3, and then assignment 37 on the cover letter. It's October 21st, Monday, 2024. To contact information, please send any assignments to studentwork@nnec.on.ca. Please include your full name, course name, assignment number, and name on every assignment, like right on the paper, not just in the file, because I don't see the original email. That goes to the secretary. She prints it off. If it isn't actually on the assignment, it's very hard for me to know what I'm looking at, okay? If it includes a rough and a good draft, please put the label right on, rough draft or good draft. You never need to hand in your brainstorming ever. If you want to talk to me while I'm in the studio today, 1-800-465-7144. If you want to call me at my office, 1-800-667-3703. If you want to reach out to me on Facebook, capital G, capital P-E-R-C-Y, space, capital W-A-H-S-A. And I am also on YouTube at the exact same address. This is what it looks like. If you go to the playlists tab, this is what will come up. The very first section here, which says 2024-2025 OLC 40 term 1A, and that is this term's class. All the other classes in here are from last year, okay? We are getting really close to the end of this course. We only got about 2 more weeks. But if you happen to be a little bit ahead of us, you can always check out these other 2 terms to see another assignment if you wish to. This is the new WASA YouTube channel that's being developed. This includes all the coursework that has currently been broadcast from this year. It does not include anything from last year. And obviously the stuff that we haven't taped yet for the upcoming courses is not in here yet, although it will eventually be, okay? Due to some confusion over the changes between last year's version of the course and this year's, I accidentally skipped over the assignment for number 36. It used to be a part of number 35, but I sectioned it off because people kept kind of skipping over it. So I've turned it into its whole new assignment, but I forgot about that and I skipped over it by accident. So I had to renumber the assignments. That's why we're kind of skipping one. We're going to cover that tomorrow, and my apologies for the confusion over that. All right, learning goals. Oh my gosh, there are so many learning goals for today's lessons that I've split them up in front of each part of the assignment they relate to. Please pay attention to them because they really do summarize what I'm trying to teach you to do and what I'm looking for when I'm assessing your abilities and your assignments, okay? So this first section, I can use punctuation marks correctly, including quotation marks, commas, periods, question marks, and exclamation points. I can use knowledge of how to write news reports to create narratives that relate to other subject areas and personal interests. I can use oral language skills to develop content for writing. I can explain the purpose and uses of other nonfiction narrative forms, such as incident reports, recountings, or biographies and autobiographies. Okay, let's look at the assignment. Okay, so summarize a news report. This is the new version. Originally, I was asking people to write their opinion, but it seemed to be a bit of a thing that was quite challenging, so I've changed it a little bit. I've included a new news article. It's not the same old one. And you got to summarize the news story in the next couple of pages in a long paragraph that covers all the important points. Be sure to include appropriate dates so that the timeline makes sense. Do not use exact quotes. Instead, summarize what's been said by putting things in your own words. The paragraph should be at least 8 sentences long. It should have a clear opening sentence. It should include at least 6 body sentences that summarize the most important elements of the story. The paragraph should also include a closing sentence that restates the main idea in new words. And see the rubric that follows for a clear idea of what your paragraph should contain. All right, here is our news story. First Nations leaders call for disbandment of Thunder Bay Police. Anishinaabe Nation, several chiefs of First Nations in the north, and 3 families with loved ones who died in the city said Monday that Thunder Bay Police can no longer conduct credible investigations. This story is from April 22nd, 2024. First Nations leaders have renewed calls to dissolve the Thunder Bay Police as the force's former chief faces criminal charges in a widening misconduct probe. Anishinaabe Nation, several chiefs of First Nations in the North, and 3 families with loved ones who died in the city said Monday that Thunder Bay police can no longer conduct credible investigations. They said they would like the Ontario Provincial Police to take over for Thunder Bay Police. Our people are dying. My daughter's gone and will not have her back, said Vincent Osberg of Bearskin Lake First Nation in northwestern Ontario, said of his daughter, Jenna. She died on December 30th, 2023 in Thunder Bay at the age of 21. The Special Investigations Unit, the province's police watchdog, said there were 3 911 calls for service from a Thunder Bay home. By the time the police arrived after the 3rd call, officers found Jenna Osberg dead. Vincent Osberg and 2 other families visited Queen's Park in Toronto on Monday to deliver a message to politicians. We can't get our children back, but the province Doug Ford has the power to give us justice, Osberg said. If we can't have our loved ones, we want justice. The families have filed complaints with the province's Inspectorate of Policing, a new agency tasked with inspecting police forces for compliance with the Community Safety and Policing Act. All 3 families have asked the province's Inspector General to reassign the death investigations into Jenna Osberg, Corey Bileski, and Mackenzie Muniz to a different police service from Thunder Bay Police. The Thunder Bay Police Service has turned into a cold case factory, said Grand Chief Alvin Fiddler of the Anishinaabe Nation, which represents 49 First Nations in northwestern Ontario. When it comes to investigations into the deaths of Indigenous peoples, there is a complete lack of trust. Everything has broken down. Several reports since 2018 have documented systematic racism in the Thunder Bay Police Force and outlined how investigations into the sudden deaths of Indigenous people have been tainted by racist attitudes and stereotyping. 13 of those investigations were so poorly handled, they had to be reinvestigated. The Ontario Provincial Police announced criminal charges this month against the former Thunder Bay Police Chief and another high-ranking member. Ex-Chief Sylvia Houth and former in-house lawyer Holly Walburn both face charges of obstruction of justice and breach of trust for allegedly making false statements to the police board and the Ontario Civilian Police Commission. The force's previous police chief retired in 2018, not long after having been found not guilty of obstruction of justice and breach of trust. Current Thunder Bay Police Chief Darcy Fleury vowed last week to rebuild the community's trust in the force. The New Democrats asked the Solicitor General in the legislature what the province intended to do with Thunder Bay Police. There's a new chief and there's a new police service board in Thunder Bay with good intentions to keep their community safe, Solicitor General Michael Kersney said. We have to give the new police service board and command leadership an opportunity to work with all community stakeholders so that members of the community feel served and protected. And that is the end of the story. It is, again, an older story. Okay, so the marking scheme for this. The rough copy is worth 10 marks, and the final copy is worth 10 marks. The final copy must show improvements in clarity and understanding, sentence structure and variety, word choice or vocabulary, selection and the explanation of main ideas, and language conventions such as spelling, grammar, usage, and punctuation. Final copies that show no changes or only some minor spelling and capitalization changes will lose significant marks compared to the rough copy. You do not have to use the space below for this assignment, but I am including it here for those who prefer to do their work right in the package, okay? So I didn't include it here, but basically there's a bunch of lines where you can put your assignments because some people just prefer to write everything kind of right there, which is fine. All right, here is the rubric, summary of a news article. This part in yellow is the categories. That's the part I'm looking at. The rest of the line shows the different grade levels that you would get. And basically, it's just depending on your ability of how well you demonstrate that category. If you do it excellently and very thoroughly, you're looking at a level A. If you do it fairly well, you're looking at a level C, or level 3. If you're looking at a level 2, you've passed, you're demonstrating some knowledge. If you're looking at a level 1, you have not demonstrated enough knowledge to be considered to have passed that part of the rubric, okay? So there's more on the next page, but here we have knowledge and understanding, knowledge of the event, and of how to write a summary paragraph format, which we've discussed. It's very simple, that part. Thinking and inquiry, critical and creative thinking skills, your ability to make inferences, selection and organization of main ideas, explaining and summarizing concepts and events. Your revisions should show significant improvements here. Communication skills, the clear communication of ideas and information, strong command of summary format with a main idea and important supporting details. By the way, that's supporting details from the text. Remember that whenever you're summarizing, you only use what's in the original. You can't add your own personal experiences to it, not in a summary. You could do that if it was an opinion, but not in a summary, okay? Also, application, there's two different things I'm looking for. First of all, the application of writing process skills, including revisions. This is a major part of this. Also, the application of required language conventions, grammar, usage, spelling, and punctuation. And lastly, the length of the assignment. If you are significantly under the length assignments, you may not only receive a failure for that section, you may receive a fail for the entire thing, because if there is not enough there, I just can't properly assess whether you've done it well. Level 2, which is the pass, is you meet at least 2/3 of the length requirements. Level 3 is that you meet the appropriate length requirements. And level 4 is that you exceed the appropriate length requirements significantly, right? Some people will write me 2 pages when I've only asked for 1. Yes, I give you extra credits for that, as long as it's everywhere else is still good, right? Okay, remember that the summary of a news article should still have an opening sentence that explains the overall main idea. This is probably going to be found in the first few sentences of the original news story, but in a longer article, you might need to look through a few more sentences. And the opening sentence of the summary should be a statement that explains the main idea in a detailed sentence. You don't want it to be too vague. So this is not relating to the article we just read, but this is kind of generically talking about things. If I said something like, the main article idea of this news article is about the Blueberry Fest. Blueberry Fest is a pretty vague topic. I'm really not explaining enough. I could say the main idea of this news article is to give a detailed schedule and explanation of the different events going on in the upcoming Blueberry Festival. That is a way more detailed answer. I'm just going to kind of point out here, these 3 words are all I've really told you about the article. Here, I've got 3 lines worth of explanation about what the article is. This is way too vague. It should look more like the second version. Okay, after you've figured out the main idea of the article, think about what are the main important points. Remember that news articles are generally structured so they're going to answer the 5 W's and the H: who, what, where, when, why, and how. In a news article, these would usually be listed briefly in the lead paragraph, and then they get explained more fully in the body or the middle paragraphs. You don't need to follow this format exactly for your summary. You can simply explain each of these items with what you feel are the important details. Some news articles, however, might be discussing a series of events, like if they were talking about a series of laws or like a war that's gone on, or they might be talking about that in terms of each individual event rather than the overall thing. So then rather than discussing one big when, you would need to discuss a series of important dates and what happened on each of those important dates or time periods. Use your best judgment from looking at the news story in order to decide how to summarize it accurately. Remember, your job is to reflect what information it gave you, okay? You do not need to, and I would prefer that you did not include direct quotes in a summary. It's easy for some people to use like, oh, I've used 8 quotes and there's my 8 sentences. But yeah, but none of that is your own words. I'm looking for your own words. So please use indirect quotes. Remember, that's when we summarize the quotation, but we're not using the exact words. We're putting it in our own words. which is the kind of stuff I'm looking for, okay? You only need to summarize the quote if that information is needed to understand the summary. Sometimes there's quotes that are just added for flavor or like to make a story a little more interesting, but it's not really important to the main idea, okay? You absolutely do not need to explain every single quote unless it is significant to the main idea of the story. When that does happen, then you need to put it in your own words and use the indirect quotation format, which does not need quotation marks. So, for example, if somebody named David said, "We have decided to continue this protest day and night in order to convince the town to modify the laws that are favoring the rich," you cannot and should not repeat that word for word. You need to summarize it as well by putting it into your own words. I might say something like this: David explained that they were determined to continue protesting until they were successful in getting the town to revise their unfair laws that are supporting the rich people. And remember, most of your quotes will not need to be summarized unless they're very important. Okay, your closing sentence may need to restate the main point of the article. It depends a little bit on how they've written the article, but that's probably what you're going to do. Some possible sentence starters to help you phrase this effectively would be things like, the main focus of this article is on, the writer is reporting on the main events of, the main point of this article is to explain, this article reports on the events of, and I'm trailing off there because you're supposed to finish that sentence, right? Those aren't periods, those are an ellipse, and an ellipse signals there is more information to come. And in this case, you are the one that is going to provide that information. Also remember, a summary should be significantly shorter than the news article. You are not retelling the entire article point by point. Instead, you are just giving me the highlights or the most important aspects of the article, right? If you were watching a hockey game last night and I said to you, hey, how'd that hockey game go? You wouldn't start walking me through every single play that would occur, right? You'd hit the highlights, you'd hit the important goals. You would give me maybe 4 or 5 sentences that summarized the whole thing, okay? That's what I'm looking for. It's also important, like we said already, don't give your opinion on the article. It may make you super mad, or you may disagree with it, or you may have personal experiences that relate to it. But it's a summary. And in a summary, no outside information is introduced unless it is mentioned precisely in that article. It simply needs to be an accurate but shorter version of what the writer wrote. This is where, hang on a sec. You want to make sure there are significant improvements between the rough and the good copy, okay? Sometimes people are doing like a few minor things, like, oh, they change a lowercase letter to an uppercase letter, or they add a period, or they add one adjective. That's not the kind of improvements I'm looking for. I'm really looking for far more major improvements, okay? Things I'm looking for would be things like a new transition phrase has been added. New sentences have been added, which contain interesting examples or details. Previous sentences have been rewritten to help improve their information, their clarity, their fluency, or their tone. Incomplete sentences have been made complete. Run-on sentences have been eliminated or used to create shorter sentences. Minor improvements. Minor improvements are really the editing stage, okay? Those are things like punctuation, capitalization, grammar, usage, spelling. Those are not what I'm looking for in the revisions. I do think those are important, but they're not as important as those major revisions of the rough copy, okay? Your final copy should be clean. This is really, really important. Your final copy clean means neat with no revisions, or maybe only 1 or 2 tiny revisions that you just noticed at the last minute, especially if you are handwriting. If you're typing, it should be perfect, okay? Only if you're handwriting. I'm not going to make you like redo all the handwriting. If you need to make a few small corrections, that's fine. But if you're typing, it should be 100% perfect. This makes your work easy to read, and it gives your audience, which is your teacher, confidence that you're handing me in your best work. If you're doing revisions on your rough copy, that's fine, but you still want to make sure that I can read the underlying work so that I'm able to mark it. If you've got so many cross-offs and so many scribbles that it's almost impossible for someone else to read besides yourself, that's going to be really hard for me to mark accurately, and it's going to reduce your marks. Because if I'm not sure, I mark low. If you're going to make a lot of revisions, photocopy or photograph your first rough draft in its clean state and make sure you hand that part in to me before you make any revisions and crossing outs. That ensures that I'm actually able to read your rough work. Then you can mark up your revised work as much as you like, but your final copy should be clean and free from major revisions. I'm having a small problem with this. From here on, if you are handing me in your final copies and it's full of revisions, I am going to hand it back to you and request that you redo it and hand me in properly clean, revised, neat copies for me to mark. Okay, next section, reading and brainstorming response goals. I can demonstrate the ability to read independently for personal, school-related, and career-related purposes. I can identify the topic, the audience, the purpose for writing, and the requirements of the particular writing form. I can use pre-writing strategies to generate ideas for writing. I can use appropriate strategies to organize ideas and information for writing. And as you've noticed, for some reason, Google does not like me using hyphens, even in words that are totally legitimate to have hyphens. So it keeps trying to mark things like that wrong, but it's perfectly fine. Okay. Quick review of a friendly letter. Most of us have written or at least seen a friendly letter at some point. These will often include a date at the top, a greeting, body paragraphs on all the personal details, a closing, and a signature. So here we've got our date. Here's my greeting. Here's my different paragraphs. There's my closing, and then my signature. That's a friendly letter, okay? Business letter, which is what we're going to be working on today, they're a little bit different from a typical friendly letter, okay? I'm going to show you an example of a business letter, and the different parts are labeled. What do we notice about the letter, and how is it different compared to a friendly letter? Okay, so here is my business letter. So first of all, the setup can be a little bit different. Usually it will have the address of the sender, whoever wrote it, either here on the far right or over here on the far left. Today, we're asking for block format. Block format means it should be over here on the left, okay? Then the address of this recipient, in other words, who you're sending it to. This is important because sometimes if you're sending it to a business, the recipients might change, right? Like maybe there's a new owner, maybe there's a new manager. So if you address this carefully, they will know who it needs to be sent to, all right? You also want to include your date. Here, they've done this in modified block format, so it's over on the right-hand side, but we're doing block format, so I put it over here on the left. You've got your salutation or your greeting. If you're not sure what to call them, dear sir or madame is really common. Opening statement or opening paragraph, your body paragraphs, and then your closing paragraph. You should have a closing greeting, I guess. Sincerely, yours sincerely, and then your signature. It also should use formal language, which we're going to talk about a little bit more. It should not sound like you're talking to your best friend. It should sound like you're talking to someone who is either your boss or kind of in a more formal, serious sort of manner, okay? So this is on lesson 14, and this is all about applying for work. A letter of application, known more commonly as a cover letter, is normally required by employers along with a resume from potential employees who are interested in more permanent types of jobs that generally pay higher salaries. Now, I would disagree. These days, I think letters of application are pretty common in almost all jobs. The exception are a few jobs where they're just like, hey, here's a job application, fill it out. Like if you were maybe working for like McDonald's or something. The types of jobs for which a cover letter and resume are requested, usually need more qualifications. I'm going to skip over that because I just disagree. A resume provides an employer with usually the same information is found in an application form, but the formatting, and I would say the job duties, is the responsibility of the person, and it allows them to present themselves in the best light. A cover letter is sort of a way where you're introducing your resume. It's especially important if you're applying to a lot of different types of jobs, or if your resume has a lot of different types of job experience. Okay, it's going to state what job are you applying for, what kind of education and work experience do you have that relate specifically to the position applied for. You can also inquire about whether it might be possible to get an interview and thank them for their time. A good copy of a cover letter should generally be a computer printout with your signature in writing at the bottom. It should be absolutely neat with no errors in spelling, grammar, or punctuation. On the next page, I'm going to show a cover letter of that's written in block format. I want to point out, sometimes people use cover letters to let a bigger company know, hey, I would be interested in working for you, even if there is not a specific position advertised yet. Often there can be a delay between when a position opens and when they actually list the job advertisement. And sometimes a letter that comes at the right time can help you get their attention before they even see another resume. I've actually even known one or two people who had a job actually created for them when somebody high up in the company liked their personality, liked their skills, and really wanted to work with them and decided, hey, you know what? Ooh, it would be cool if we had a tech assistant job. And then they created a tech assistant job so that they could hire that person. I won't say that happens all the time, but it does happen. So if there's a job, like a bigger organization, it's not going to work for smaller ones usually, but a bigger organization where they may have a lot of needs. And if they see somebody who's perfect to fill some needs, they may just create a whole new job advertisement for you. Okay, so here's an example of a cover letter. Up top, we have the address of the person who wrote it. General Delivery, Mishkegaming, Ontario, POV 3AO. Then we've got the date, September 14th, 2022. And then we have the address of who they're sending it to. A Home Hardware Attention Manager. And then the full name. This is where it's important because, again, the manager could change. Things like that happen all the time. P.O. Box 938, 40 Alcona Drive, Sioux Lookout, Ontario, P8T 1B3. Dear Mr. or Mrs., and then you would put their last name if it says it, okay, if you know what it is. I would like to be considered for the position of cashier at your store as advertised. At present, I'm a student with Wassa Distance Education Center and need only 2 credits in order to graduate with my OSSD. One course I am taking this term is OLC 40, which focuses on reading and writing as communication skills for the workforce. I now feel confident that I can be an effective team player at your store and that I can handle the duties of cashier. I worked as a cashier part-time last year at the Northern Store in Pickle Lake. I am an honest and hardworking person and also friendly and outgoing. I have good oral and organizational skills as required for this position and have some knowledge of building materials. I am willing to learn as much as possible in order to do my work successfully, so I'm hoping that you will give me an opportunity in this position. I can be reached at any time for an interview at 928-1234. Thank you for your time. Yours sincerely, Debbie Snow. Now, notice that she's typed it, but she's also written it. That makes it's considered like official once you've signed it. Down here it says ENCL period. That stands for enclosed, and then resume. That used to be pretty typical. I don't see it as often, but you're certainly welcome to put it there. It won't hurt. Okay, here's the actual assignment. Writing a cover letter. Following the sample cover letter on the previous page. Now, that doesn't mean writing the exact same thing. Occasionally people hand me in the exact same cover letter. No, guys, I won't mark that. It's got to be your own words, okay? They mean follow the format, not write it word for word. You're to do a rough copy that's handwritten of the letter and then revise and edit it as necessary. And that final copy should be produced on your computer. Both the rough and the final copy are to be submitted for marking. As you prepare to develop your letter, think about your purpose and audience and provide the most important details of information that you can as the introduction to your resume. Once again, there should be no mistakes in spelling, grammar, and punctuation. And the higher the salary of the job you are applying for, the more important that is, right? It sounds silly and it shouldn't matter, but sometimes people will eliminate someone on the basis of poor grammar or poor spelling if they feel like, oh, that may reflect their intelligence or their education or how they talk. And I don't want someone like that in a position of power in our company. So be especially careful the more money that job is going for, okay? Also want to point out, okay, yeah, sorry. This is the original version of the assignment 36. I think I've rewritten it. The revised version, it's called 37, but the assignment is still exactly the same. Job ads can be found in the Sioux Lookout Bulletin or any other job paper you want to use. Thunder Bay Chronicle, Winnipeg Free Press, those are all good. There is also this local job site where you can search as well. This is what many people in the area are using. See the new Northwest Ontario job site for jobs in our area. Now, I know some students don't have internet access to locate job ads. If that is the case for you, please contact me or your DEC for a sample job ad if needed. Normally, the DEC that has this issue already has a copy of these possibilities, okay? So just let them know. I'm going to quickly show you this because it used to be a different site and it's kind of new. I don't know if everybody even knows that it's out there now. Northwest Employment Works, this is the new one. If you see here, no, I don't want you to use my stuff. Here we go. Sorry, computer's moving slow. Dee-doo, 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 doo, doo-doo. Why is it not coming? Here we go, here we go. Okay. So if you are an employer, you can put things here. If you're a job seeker, you can look at the job bank. There's resources. If you want to talk to a career coach or talk to students, you can talk to all sorts of people about things, okay? I'm going to go to the job bank just to quickly show it to you. So here's the thing. You can check off casual, which is like on call, full-time, internship, part-time, remote, student, temporary, training, and volunteer. By the way, student usually means under 18. It doesn't have anything to do with whether you're taking high school. It has to do with some jobs. They're allowed to give a student rate, which is less pay, and they're only allowed to have a certain amount of hours. So if you're not under 18, uncheck that right away, okay? If you don't want to do volunteer work, uncheck that. If you don't want to do an internship, which could be working for free, by the way, uncheck that. If you only want to do full-time, again, only check the parts you want. Now, you can also, here are the regions, Dryden, Marathon, Sioux Lookout, Thunder Bay, or you could say all regions. And then over here, keywords, you could put whatever you like there. I'm going to put construction and just kind of see what comes up. Okay. So some things came up that might be relevant, some things that are not, and I would just kind of click on it. Sorry, it's operating slowly. Okay, so it would give me some more information. There's a little spot I would go to apply to it. It would tell me what they're looking for. So this is one spot you could go to get different job ads, okay, if you're looking for a job ad for this. Okay. So when you're writing a cover letter, you want to think about the audience, the purpose, the tone, and the level of language. What is the purpose of any cover letter? Basically, your purpose is to persuade them. You're trying to get them to invite you in for a job interview and hopefully get hired. Who is the audience? In real life, whoever's doing the interviewing. I know I am the audience right now, but you want to write for the imaginary person who might be hiring you. That could be the person who owns the business. It could be the person who manages the store, or it could be somebody who works in human resources that you might never actually see again. It really kind of depends on generally how big the company is. A bigger company is going to have a human resources person, like say the hospital or something. What should my tone be in the letter? Most business letters should sound serious and not silly or casual. Generally, you want the tone to sound professional and businesslike. What should my level of language be? Your vocabulary should reflect your knowledge of the job industry vocabulary that is relevant to the job. Your sentence structures should show a variety of sentence types. And as much as possible, all spelling, grammar, and punctuation errors should be eliminated. Most job ads are going to list several different areas or types of qualifications that they're looking for. Always check to make sure that you meet most of the criteria. Now, you don't necessarily need to meet all the criteria. A lot of times a business will when they put down the qualifications, they'll put down their dream candidate. Like, oh, it'd be perfect if they had a college degree in this. It would be perfect if they also spoke Ojibwe. It would be perfect if they also had at least 5 years of experience. But if they don't get anyone that meets those criteria, they're going to start looking for, oh, okay, well, this person maybe only had 3 years instead of 5 years. This person doesn't have a college degree, but they do have experience doing the job. They start to uh, lighten up on their expectations. So even if you don't meet all the expectations, if you feel like you meet a fair bit of them, go ahead and apply. But before we get to writing our cover letter, jot down some notes so you've got some ideas about what you want to say. What level of education are they requesting, and do you have it? Do not be dishonest about this. If they're asking for a college degree and you don't have it, it's okay to say, I don't currently have it, or just to ignore it, right? You're not mentioning it, but you're not pointing it out. If you are in the program right now working on it, you can say, I am currently enrolled in this particular program and I am due to complete it whenever you're due to complete it. Are there any specific training or certifications they are looking for? This could be things like first aid training, driver's license, second language skills. Sometimes they want you to have a knowledge of certain computer software programs like Excel. Do they want a certain number of years of experience, and do you have them? This is one of those things that the more years they're asking for, the more important it probably is. If they want somebody who's got 10 years of experience, they're probably not going to take you if you've never done the job before. But if they're saying we want somebody with at least 2 years of experience, well, they might take someone that only had a year though, right? So be flexible with that. Also, do they mention certain personality traits they are looking for? Different jobs might be looking for very different types of people. Some job ads may specifically mention things like highly motivated, enthusiastic, good with people, team-oriented. If they're mentioning those characteristics, do you have those type of characteristics? So if it talks about you're great with people, but actually you're really shy, that might not be a good fit for you, that job. This is one of those categories people find tricky. A lot of times people will use honest and hardworking because that's what our sample says, but you can put in any personality trait that is true, okay? Honesty, most people are going to assume that you're honest. Sometimes people are using honest as kind of a code word for I won't steal money from the company, right? You want it to be appropriate to what the job is. You don't need to use every adjective or phrase that I'm listing. Pick up a few of them. Things that you can back up with actual evidence, like examples of when you use that skill or show that personality, would be more convincing. So if it's a job where you have to work alone a lot, they might say words like needs to be independent, needs to work well with minimal supervision, needs to be self-motivated, right? Jobs where you have to work with the public a lot, they may say things like friendly, outgoing, calm, confident, good with people. Jobs where you need to supervise or manage other people, they might ask for qualities like organized, determined, resourceful, responsible, reliable, team builder, competent, takes initiative. Jobs where you need to handle money, that's where you're going to say things like reliable, honest, accurate, precise, careful, good math skills, calm. Jobs in the trades, you may see words like skilled, knowledgeable, experienced, capable, accurate, follows directions, operates machinery, handles tools expertly, things like that. They may also mention specific skills or job duties that they will be doing. If you already have experience using those skills in previous jobs, say so right in the cover letter. For example, they may say that you will be doing items such as janitorial work or maintenance repairs. Even if you haven't used those skills in a specific job, if you know how to do them because of work you've done in other areas of your life, mention it. So, for example, I've worked as a casual janitor at the elementary school, and I am familiar with the safe handling and disposal of cleaning chemicals. And I am quick and efficient at cleaning classrooms, bathrooms, walls, and windows. I am also comfortable doing many minor repairs around my own home, such as fixing broken steps, repairing drywall holes, sometimes I have halls here, sanding and painting wood trim, as well as minor plumbing repairs, such as fixing leaky faucets and pipes. Okay, maybe you do some volunteer work where you show that skill. Take a few moments to brainstorm your answers to these typical areas that may appear in a job advertisement. Okay. Sometimes a job will list special requirements regarding job hours or working conditions, and they are often super important. You want to make sure that you are able to meet those requirements. So if the job ad says you must be able to take evening and weekend work, but you know that you're not going to be able to due to childcare issues, don't apply for that job. You're not going to get it. Okay. And if you do, what are you going to do? How are you going to solve that problem? Another example might be if they make it clear that you need to be able to work outdoors and handle extreme cold and hot weather conditions. If you know that you are going to hate every moment of that, or that you have some medical issues that will make doing that almost impossible, don't send them an application. You already know you're not going to be able to meet those important criteria. Okay. Every now and again, you'll see those, and those ones are like, these ones are the non-negotiables. You must have it. Okay. If you see that word must or required, those mean you have to have. Some job ads don't give you a whole lot of information, and you may have to kind of imagine what their criteria might be. If they don't say a whole lot, you got to think about, what do you think the perfect employee in that job would have in terms of skills, experience, training, and personality traits. This is really common. You might see it in job ads for entry-level positions like a cashier. They just kind of feel like, well, everybody knows what a cashier is. So they don't tell you enough information. Well, what might a cashier need? Well, easiest would be, of course, experience as a cashier. List any experience you have here with your number of years and possibly the name of the store. Skills needed. List any specific skills you've used as a cashier, such as handling point of sale transactions, closing out your register accurately at the end of a shift, solving customer complaints, and then any special training or certificates. You might have certificates that could be helpful on a job site, even if they aren't directly required or asked for. Things like first aid, or say a smart serve certification. If you're a cashier at a restaurant, that might come up. You might get asked. Personality traits. Cashiers often need to be able to function well in busy environments, be outgoing and friendly with customers, even when they're grumpy or critical, get along with colleagues at work, punctual or on time for shifts, be able to keep your work area clean or tidy. Okay, I'm running short of time, so I'm going to skip the next one. I'll put it up there briefly just in case you want to pause it. This is one that I did for construction work. Okay. Rough draft. You want to be able to use appropriate strategies to organize the ideas and information for writing. Write a rough draft that includes the main and supporting ideas in the required form. Demonstrate understanding that the subject, audience, and purpose influences your choices of form, tone, and level of language. And you're essentially constructing a summary, and it states the main idea and important supporting details. So here's an example, and up top we have her first paragraph, and it's expressing interest in the position, but also in the company. Then she starts to describe her skills and her experience with industry standards. In the next paragraph, she talks about significant achievements that helped her last boss. Then near the end, she's talking about extra certificates and training she has that might be relevant. And then she writes a little closing paragraph kind of asking to see if she can get an interview. So that's a sample of how you might do it. A cover letter would not usually be one giant block of text because it's too hard to read. You're going to want to have at least 3 or 4 paragraphs, just like they do. This is the success criteria for the cover letter. If it's done thoroughly, you get all the marks. Partly done, half the marks. Poorly done or not at all, you may get 1 or 0. So look for each of these criteria. The letter format, I'm looking for things like it's in block format. You've included the sender address, the recipient address, a greeting, and a closing. The letter content, work or volunteer experience is described. Training or education is described. Skills relevant to the job is described. Personality traits relevant. In your own words and not copied from the example. Language conventions. I'm looking for complete sentences, a variety of sentence structures. Punctuation and capitalization are good. Spelling is good. Grammar is good. And I give you an extra 5 marks if you hand me in the job advertisement. You are not writing this yourself, okay? I've had a few people do this lately. Not writing it yourself. Find a real one, okay? This is important, guys. Okay. Remember that your rough draft needs to be handwritten so I know it's you. Good copy needs to be done on the computer. I know that some students in certain areas don't have access to a computer. Generally, you don't need to tell me. I'm usually aware of that situation. But if it affects you and you think that I'm really unaware of it, send me an email and let me know. However, you still have to do the good copy. You just need to handwrite it rather than do me a computer copy. It's okay to choose a job that you don't actually have the qualifications for or wouldn't really want. It doesn't matter to me. I'm marking how you write, not whether what you wrote matches your actual qualifications. Like, I'm not hiring you. I'm checking your writing. Now, we're getting close to the end. I will show you tomorrow how to use Google Docs or Canva to create this. Hang on, I'm going to put a little heart here. If I do that, I remember later on where I ended at. Otherwise, sometimes I don't. Okay. So tomorrow I will look at precisely how to use Google Docs, just in case you haven't used it. I know not everybody has used it. And also Canva, which is also another site that you could use to create this, okay? Thank you so much. Today's Monday. I will be back tomorrow to finish this up and also to tackle assignment 36, okay? Thank you. Talk to you later.